Graphic design and UX design have more in common than a lot of people realise. I spent over 10 years working as a graphic designer before I became a UX designer, but looking back, I don't think I really changed careers at all. I just finally found a name for the type of work I'd always enjoyed the most. If you're wondering whether graphic design could lead you into UX too, this is how it happened. Quick rewind back to 2018, and I'd been working as a graphic designer for about 11 years at the time. Rewind even further back, and I started out of uni as a junior graphic designer in 2007. But after just over a decade, I was feeling stuck. I thought I was done with design. I felt a bit low on creativity, and because I didn't see myself as the creative director type, I just couldn't see a clear career trajectory forward for me. So actually, I tried account management next. Failed miserably, but learned quickly that I did in fact prefer creating and being a designer. So I went back into design. And thinking about what I loved in graphic design, I loved creating and being in control. I liked making things that were useful and served a purpose. Then there was the thrill of seeing your design in print, published or on the side of a building. It's a rush and a proud feeling of, I made that. But I also loved design for web, and even though I was a graphic designer, I found a lot of my work was web design, and in my team I was often given the projects where the websites were a mess. Like heavy going, totally behind. They needed an overhaul in more ways than one. And I absolutely loved getting stuck into those. Creating a living, breathing website out of absolute chaos was the pinnacle of job satisfaction for me. And the clients were usually impressed too, and that's always a good feeling at the end of a project. I became very confident in handling these big projects, start to finish, liaising with clients, presenting, and working closely with developers and understanding more and more of their world too. I loved it. But the role I was at after my failed foray in account management wasn't giving me the opportunities to work on that type of project. I felt boxed in and like my wings were clipped. I didn't get to speak to clients much and generally felt a bit under-challenged. Something had to change, so I was on the lookout for the next thing. I can't really recall exactly how I discovered UX or whether I'd just become aware of it gradually, but I do remember booking onto a full day UX workshop in my local city, and that was the turning point. All of a sudden, I was surrounded by people who I wanted to be. Everything was just clicking into place. What struck me most was that a few of the people I spoke to didn't actually seem to be doing anything wildly different to me in my previous role, the one with all the juicy web projects. I boldly asked one designer how she got into UX, and it turns out we had surprisingly similar backgrounds. For the first time, it felt like I'd found my people. The part of the day that stayed with me the most was the design thinking workshop. We were given a problem, split into small groups, and asked to explore different ways of solving it. Nobody cared what it looked like yet. We weren't jumping straight into Photoshop or Figma, and we were just trying to understand the problem first, and I loved it. It felt natural. It felt someone had finally put a name to the kind of work I'd enjoyed most throughout my career. It wasn't about decorating a solution. It was about figuring out what the right solution actually was. I remember leaving that workshop thinking, this is it. This is what I wanted to do next. I just needed to figure out how to get there. The hardest thing was knowing where to start and what I actually needed to learn to bridge the knowledge gap, and then how to prove to someone else that I was a UX designer. After all, my career history read as graphic designer. I didn't have a UX degree or qualification. I had a degree in graphic design. And although UX design had been around for a long time at this point, there wasn't even such a thing at my university. Suddenly, everyone seemed to be selling a UX bootcamp, and they were everywhere and expensive. Very expensive. And I can tell you right now, I've not done a bootcamp, and many of you might find that a relief to know. You can save your monies there. They were tempting though, posing as shortcuts, hacks, or sometimes the only way to get through the magical UX gates. It's not the case though. I want to also jump in here and say I think now more than ever, it's also not essential to have a degree or formal qualification in design or UX design, especially not to start with. There will always be companies, hiring managers who ask for it or prefer it. There's no avoiding that. But I firmly believe the reality of today is that ultimately what matters is the skills you have, how you apply them, how you learn, how you think, and being able to show and present this in a portfolio of work. The biggest hurdle for me at the time was the burden of knowledge and at the same time lack of. I started looking into what I needed to know and making a list of things to study, things to learn, software I needed to know. But the more I looked, the more it became apparent how big some of the knowledge gaps were. A bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I keep finding more stuff I didn't know. Actually, I'm curious, if you're trying to get into UX right now, what's been the hardest part for you? Let me know in the comments. I do read and appreciate all the comments, and I'll help where I can if you have questions. So the next thing I did before I completely overwhelmed myself, or more accurately, shortly after overwhelming myself, I mapped out what I did know and what seemed to match up to the skills and knowledge I needed. I then mapped out what seemed to be the most important gaps I needed to fill. I picked 1 or 2 tools at the time to learn. I found a couple of courses that seemed to fit and started following some YouTubers whose content covered what I needed to know. I parked the idea that I needed to know everything and worked on this curriculum I've created for myself. And anytime there was something mentioned in a video or I heard a term I didn't understand, I just noted it down so I could check on it later. After I'd laid the groundwork, I booked in a few mentoring sessions with someone already working in UX. Looking back, it was one of the best ways I invested my time because it helped me focus on what actually mattered instead of trying to learn everything. It was massively helpful and quicker to have someone who could answer my questions and help me get unstuck in the early days. Then I began to prepare and update my portfolio and CV. This involved a lot of reframing my graphic design work and experience to support my new direction and ditching anything that didn't support it. Sadly, this meant that a lot of very proud projects left my portfolio to make space for new UX work. So at the time, my portfolio was a blend. My older work might not have been completed under the title of UX designer, but I could talk about it at length and confidently and focus on the UX side of it more. And the newer work did the heavy lifting visually in terms of the deliverables and artifacts that made up the project. Then applying. Even though I felt underqualified, even though I wondered, can I do all these things on this job spec? Look, there will always be another book to read, another tool, another course, something else to learn. The important thing is to give yourself permission. You are a UX designer. No one, and I mean no one, is going to come along and hereby anoint you an official UX designer. When I left uni with my graphic design degree, was I a designer? Was I a graphic designer? Not really. You become the thing by doing the thing. And there comes a point where you have to stop learning. No, never stop learning. But you actually have to go do the thing. So put on your big UX designer pants and apply for the jobs or put yourself in front of clients. And that's what I did. I applied, I put myself out there, and I got some interviews. Interviewing taught me far more than I expected. Every interview showed me what companies were actually looking for. Instead of broad hypothetical lists of things to learn, I suddenly had a much clearer picture of the skills and tools employers around me genuinely valued. And the more you interview and talk about your work through the lens of, I am a UX designer, the more confidence you will have that you are a UX designer. Because you are one. No one in the interviews grilled me to test my knowledge, no one tried to catch me out, and no one called me out for being a fraud. They were interested in experience, the work behind the projects, and my approach to problem solving. Actually, sometimes they talked mostly about what they were looking for. Interviewers aren't always expert interviewers. I think as well in interviews, they're sizing you up for fit within the team. So how you communicate, your personality, if you seem keen and like you'd be easy to work with. At the end of each interview, I left more informed and in a better position than the last. Eventually, I landed my first UX role. And it was not what I expected at all. One, it was on a freelance project basis. And two, it was remote. This was not where I thought I would land. But the opportunity and the project were exciting. The prospect of freelancing was terrifying, but I knew that I had to go for it. The risk paid off, and after that initial project, there was another and another, and I took on other clients, other projects. And with every project, I learned more and my skill set and confidence grew. Looking back now, I probably spent far more time worrying that I wasn't ready than I needed to. My graphic design experience wasn't something I had to overcome. It was one of the biggest reasons I got the opportunity in the first place. I think we massively underestimate how much transfers from graphic design. So things like visual problem solving, understanding, visual hierarchy, information hierarchy, critiquing design work, understanding how websites work, tackling messy projects, extracting briefs, working with typography, and making things clear and designing with purpose. For me, design was never about decoration. It was always about problem solving, and that's exactly how I think about UX. I was also very at home presenting and defending my work to clients. Working with clients was something I was confident in and enjoyed and wanted more of. Knowing how to set up print margins and cut lines wasn't of much use, but knowing that at one point in time I didn't understand those either and yet figured them out meant I could figure this out too. So who should and shouldn't make the move? If you love print, there's not really much print. But seriously, if you lean towards the art side of things, feel stifled or constricted by briefs, maybe do a lot of illustration in your work and you'd miss it, I don't think UX is going to bring you much joy. If you like that feeling of, it works, it's working, it's alive, or look, they're using it, it's probably for you. Note, with this comes, oh look, they're using it wrong. Oh, they broke it. But that's part of the fun. If you love the deep dive and understanding the why behind a project, like piecing things together and you've got a brain that craves systems and order and making sense of things, then UX is for you. If the idea of watching the thing you just made fail and then making another version of it and another, putting your ego aside and owning, I think I know the answer, but let's test it and see, sits well with you, then UX is for you. If you're offended by your beautiful design being shot down, not for you. If you're interested in the weird and wonderful ways of human behavior, for you. If the idea of learning new tools as they come up drains you, not for you. I focused mostly on graphic designers in this video because that was my route into UX, and there are a lot of transferable skills between the two. But graphic design is not the only way in. UX is a broad discipline and there's lots of different ways into it. So whether your background is in research, psychology, customer service, marketing, development, teaching, project management, or something else entirely, you may already have more relevant experience than you realize. Graphic design can be an excellent stepping stone into UX, but the right mindset, curiosity, and willingness to learn matter far more than having one particular job title behind you. When I look back, it feels like there was less of a jump than it seemed at the time. I don't feel like I left graphic design behind at all. You don't have to become someone else to become a UX designer. You just need to build on the skills you already have. Thanks for watching and listening along. If you'd like more support with becoming a UX designer, I've left a link to my email list in the description. That's where I'll share future mentoring opportunities, free resources, and anything else I create to help people make the move into UX. Also, I hope you enjoyed the clips of my office renovation. Subscribe to follow along for more UX content, and I'll see you in the next video.